And a very good morning to you. Welcome to K24 this morning. My name is Jeff Mote. As usual, we start off the show by looking at the big stories in our dailies and also digging a bit deeper into our main conversation of the day. Today is no different. We'll be doing that right here on the show. We love it when you're part of the show. Of course, as always, there's a WhatsApp number at the bottom of the screen. You can also get me at I am Jeff Mote on Twitter or at K24 TV. Don't forget, in case you've just left the house and haven't managed to get yourself a copy of Your People Daily, you can get it straight to your phone. The number that you dial is *550*4#. Once again, the number *550*4#. Dial that number, get yourself a copy of a People Daily straight to your phone. As you do that, on the front page of your e-paper this morning, even as you get it, Kagwe's new red flag on coronavirus. Change or perish, CS tells Kenyans as state threatens to reintroduce stiffer measures against virus following sharp increase in infections. As you can see, as of yesterday, 685 cases testing positive in the last 24 hours. Brings total caseload in the country to 44,881 at this particular point, and 832 deaths so far. The details of this story on page 8 of Your People Daily this morning. Also in the PD, Kisii puts best foot forward for Mashujaa celebrations. This happening tomorrow. Workers arranged chairs at Gusii Stadium yesterday ahead of Mashujaa Day celebration tomorrow. The details of the preparations to the festivities can be found on page 5 of your PD. Also in the PD, the JSC fight over Maraga retirement heats up. This can be found on page 6 of your PD. And on page 4, a story that will also be really pertinent to the conversation we're having today. MPs have 60 days to pass BBI and Big Four laws. Referendum law, CJ replacement, and impeachment of governors among pending bills that need to be cleared on the floor of the House. This, of course, coming after the President met leadership of both houses, and they agreed on a 60-day deadline to make sure all of these bills are hammered out in the House. Once again, you can get your copy of your PD and get all of these stories and plenty more straight to your phone. The number that you dial is *550*4#. Once again, the number is *550*4#. So you don't need to leave the office if you're already there. If it's raining cats and dogs like I've been told it is in Bomet, once again, you can get your copy wherever you are, *550*4#. Let's look at the front page of the Daily Nation now. Loans shocker for borrowers. The devil is in the details, and thousands of Kenyans who took advantage of a loan repayment holiday offered by banks, SACCOs and other financial institutions are learning this the hard way after they discovered that their debts continue to accumulate interest during the quote-unquote relief from COVID period. Lenders appear to have taken advantage of broad guidelines on the moratorium that was given right there and ensure that they cushioned their bottom line. And at the end of the day, this cost passed on to those who are taking those facilities. You can get that story in your copy of your Daily Nation on page 7 therein. Also, even as you look at that, Tunai pilot, it happened in a blink. Governor Tunai over the weekend having a helicopter crash right there. And of course, the details as to what led to that particular incident being detailed in your copy of your Daily Nation. You can get that story on page 8 therein. Front page of the Standard now. DCI and spy agency may soon control Harambees. For a long time, chaos has ruled the conduct of fundraisers, from money laundering to bouncing checks and misuse of proceeds. Now MPs want to bury this mess, but will they succeed? Is a question being asked right there. As you can see, various people of interest as they carried out Harambees, from DP William Ruto to business person Jimmy Wanjigi, even former PM Raila Odinga, and this might soon fall under the purview of the DCI and the NIS. You can get the details of that in your copy of your Standard. Also, former Nairobi Governor Kidero making a comeback and how he spent a 400 million shilling war chest. They're talking about how he's raised and spent nearly $500 million shillings in the 2017 battle for Nairobi County Governor post, but still lost the elections. Going into details right there, and also just positing as to where he might be going to next. You can find that story on page 10 of your Standard today. And even as you look at that, there's also rivals hitting ground in BBI battle build-up. A day after Uhuru met parliamentary leadership, MPs allied to Uhuru and Raila hit the campaign trail to sell the Building Bridges initiative as DP Ruto and his allies traversed Embu, setting the stage to oppose it. You can get the details of that particular story and the build-up to that on page 6 of your Standard this morning. Finally, front page of the Star, BBI gender plan, counties to pick 47 women senators. Idea is to achieve parity with without passing extra burden to taxpayer. Each county to elect one man and one woman, by doing so, of course, achieving the 2/3 gender rule right there. And you can find that story on page 4 and 5 with those details therein. Those are some of the stories that we're looking at right here, of course, on the show, but also keeping a keen eye on what really is the leadership of this country. Number one, number two, the president and the deputy, and the probably likelihood of getting a truce right there. How do they do that moving forward? We've even had various business people and members of the clergy trying to broker this particular truce. What is the problem and how do they get past that to deliver for the country? We have a question of the day. Let's have that up on screen even before we start. Is a handshake between Uhuru, Raila and Ruto the ultimate truce? Once again, is a handshake between Uhuru, Raila and Ruto the ultimate truce so they can get on with the work and put the political bickering to rest for now? So once again, is a handshake between Uhuru, Raila and Ruto the ultimate truce? The WhatsApp number is at the bottom of the screen. You can also get me at I am Jeff Mote or at K24 TV. Welcome. This is K24 This Morning. Welcome back. Let me get to my panel in studio this morning. They're usually here on a Tuesday, so I'm sure even they're feeling kind of weird right now. But such is life. Of course, tomorrow is going to be a public holiday. Today we have Arnold Maliba, governance public policy expert. Good morning.
Morning, Jeff.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Welcome to the show.
You're also welcome this morning with us.
I'm also welcome to moderate.
To be with us.
It is good to know. It is good to know that I'm welcome.
Yeah.
And Joy Mdivo, she's the Executive Director at the East Africa Center for Law and Justice. Good morning.
Morning, Jeff.
I hope Arnold isn't giving you too much pressure with his 500 sticky notes, his 10 pencils. It almost feels like a national exam.
I'm contented with my C. I don't have to get... C students become presidents. That's what George Bush told us. I'm good.
Okay, also joining the conversation from a very rainy Bomet, governance expert, Justice Maina. Good morning, Justice.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the show. I want us to start this off before we get to our main conversation right here. Front page of the People Daily, Kagwe's new red flag on coronavirus, talking about the fact that if Kenyans continue to behave normally, they'll have to take up normal measures to try and contain this particular virus. But is the horse out of the stable on this one? Because we saw what happened when they put these measures. Will they take it back there? Do you think it's feasible to do that, Arnold, even from a policy point of view?
We are where we are because from the very beginning, we messed up the policy administration around these issues for the very reason that, public administration is quite a complex science and art. You will want to look at it from a classical point of view and look at it as a politicized bureaucracy. And I think sometimes we take that too far, especially if you realize that when the pandemic landed here, rather than us dealing with it as a pandemic that it was, we converted it into so many things. First of all, we turned it into a public order campaign. We then went further and politicized it, where COVID was supposedly only supposed to be in certain meetings and was missing in others. Then there was corruption bit of it, even as corruption is almost is actually a characteristic of public administration, the classical theory part of it. So then there was corruption, which we have not dealt with as we speak. I know the Auditor General is trying to actually address that in very many ways. So when we came out of lockdown, for so many people it felt like we were just being put away so that, number one, people eat. Others felt like they were being kept away so that others can politic and get ahead of them. And there was not so much of a demonstration that we had just come out of a serious pandemic and that we were being kept away for our own good. So when we came back, if you realize that across the country, if you've had the advantage of traveling, is that no one is actually putting on masks. I was in Western the other day, and you find that out of 10, probably 1 or 2 people are putting on masks. When you come in putting on a mask, people think like unajifanya. You are among the people who are taking this thing too serious. In fact, I was told that thing is in the city with you people, not with us. Then I went Far Eastern. I also found the same thing. In the city as we speak already, people are no longer putting on masks, as in the numbers are actually going down, and we are normalizing ignoring this. So already the systems collapsed. At the end, we realized that probably the testing, tracing, and treating or whatever we were supposed to do wasn't working out effectively. We didn't keep the data very well. Now the numbers are going up, and you realize that we are not surprised. The shock that used to be there wouldn't be there. So I would really hope that it's not just going to be threats and then we go back to another lockdown and another measure of trying to contain us without proper thinking through the way they did in the first.
Right.
We will excuse them that in the first instance, none of us really knew how to get about this. But I hope that lessons have been learned and we will do it much better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joy, from where we stand right now, we have very many parents who've tried to get their children back in school, if they're in grade 4 or class 8 or form 4. And now here we are at a potential, going back to home, back to lockdown, so to speak, scenario. Is it that the government is flip-flopping on this, or is it the citizens that are the problem? They're not following the protocols, and so what did you expect as a Kenyan?
No, I've reached a place where now I want to see the science. I listen to Arnold and I agree with him in principle, but in as much as we have learned more about COVID and we know what to do to keep ourselves safe, the Ministry of Health needs to change tact. We don't want to hear numbers, we don't want to hear percentages, we want to hear science. What is the science behind this? So you say because of wearing masks, we've managed to reduce this by this much. Now we've reached a place where groups that have got comorbidities, we have done this and that to protect them. Now that I want to see some thinking going into this, because if you just want to tell us, oh, the numbers are high, go back in the houses and shut the doors. I mean, we are past that. We've gotten to a place where you need to give us more than just, this disease is still here, please hide. And we've had a flu vaccine for the last 78 years. We still get the flu. We've had HIV for the last 4 decades almost. We still have HIV. We've had TB for how many years? We've had Ebola coming and going. Diseases are part of human life. It's what we live with. Same with crops. They get diseases every time. So we have to come to a place where one disease stops being our obsession and our fixation. And if it needs to be our obsession and fixation, tell us why. It can't just be because there are infections. Okay, so what happens to the infections? Why am I saying that? It's because there's a time none of us knew any COVID patients. Now most of us have known somebody who's been affected with COVID or not. And many of us also know somebody who's gotten COVID and recovered from it, and they're now carrying on with life. Okay, so what am I so scared of if I know, like I personally know about 7 people who have actually recovered successfully from COVID. So I'm reaching a place where, okay, so why is my everything having to stop because of COVID? Don't tell us it's because of spread, because it is a disease, it's going to spread anyway. We were giving the health systems time to catch up. Now you're telling us most of them, even though they're not where they're supposed to be, we are at least better off. Okay, fine. So we were waiting for the first wave, the second wave, the big bang theory. Okay, it hasn't really happened, but we are seeing cases. If we are going to go and start disrupting people's lives and businesses, I want to see science. I want to see concrete proof. I don't want to hear the CS telling us, you can see now the numbers are 600. Okay, we are 50 million almost. We are not at 50 million. Yeah, but we are close to 50 million. Honestly, there are 600 cases, yes. Like Arnold said, I've traveled to a few towns out of Nairobi. Once you go there, they're seeing the mask. In fact, it's almost like you're reporting yourself that you are the one who has come with corona. Right. So we have to have a different approach. It can't be normally, you don't open bars, wear a mask. No, that guitar, wimbo tumesikia imeisha. Let us find a way of helping people understand if there is a potential danger, this is where the potential danger is, this is how we mitigate it. Because like you said, children now have gone back to school. The bars and restaurants have now been reopened, as have churches. Life is getting to a place where people are mingling again. Once people start moving, the virus starts moving. So now we are beyond, don't try and catch the virus. Can we get to the place where if you catch the virus, this is what you do? If you've got people who are very susceptible to the virus, this is how you keep them safe. If you have this and that symptoms, this is when you go to hospital. That's where we've gotten to. But hii mengine, I think ni vitisho baridi.
Let's speak of those vitissues as well, because as of yesterday, just as in the statement that they gave, they spoke about the fact that political leaders will also have to bear responsibility, spoke about the fact that they'll also have to lead in terms of these protocols being put in place. But the Ministry of Health usually talks like that, and every single weekend we shall see various leaders atop of their 4x4s, having very many people gathered around them in that particular space, no social distancing, no masks being worn. And really, when you think about it, then they're the ones who should bear this particular responsibility of having these crowds there. Do you think we'll get to a point where these political leaders actually bear the responsibility for putting such Kenyans at risk?
I think the greatest challenge facing these countries is that the government has got both the administrative and political arm. But the challenge facing Kenya is that increasingly and almost steadily, the political arm is getting more powerful and overruling the administrative arm of the government. Today, a mayor MP in a constituency can dictate to a deputy county commissioner, can dictate to an OCPD, can dictate to very senior police officers. So in this country, I think increasingly, and we are not very careful, soon the administrative arm of government will be subservient almost in all critical sectors of management of public service to the political arm of this system. And if we want to make strides and we want to govern in a manner that is that ensures stability and progress, then the administrative arm of government must again be given the room and the responsibility to be able to provide leadership where it is due. To depend almost entirely in this fight and combat against COVID-19 on the political wing of this government is really to surrender to the menace of COVID-19. So I think we need to retrace our steps, because I've worked in government and I've realized that since the advent of multi-party democracy, and where the government of the day depend on members of parliament, on politicians to pass budgets, the government of the day seem in a manner to be almost subservient to the political wing, because these are the people who do the budget, and therefore any president of the day would want to be in the good books of the politicians. And increasingly, the politicians are getting more powerful and almost untouchable. And therefore, in the manner of fighting COVID-19, I do not see the manner in which we can be able to fight it with the team of politicians, because I can tell you, Jeff, that the administrative wing is almost impotent as we speak. This government is not being run by the technocrats. The government is virtually being run by the politicians, including the so-called ministers, the CSS, who initially came in as technocrats, but on the way to Damascus, the same technocrats have turned into politicians. If we talk about the CS for Health, you have seen him eating nyamachoma, almost himself violating the COVID protocols. And finally, I think the greatest challenge facing us is that once the story of the COVID-19 billionaires came up, I think Kenyans began to doubt whether COVID is real, because the narrative of while Kenyans were being asked to kufunga mdomo, wengine walifungua mdomo wakakula. So that narrative is obtained largely in most of the rural areas, urban centers. People discuss the COVID billionaires and begin to wonder whether they are being asked to social distance, while people are not keeping distance from our funds. People are putting their till in KEMSA money. The KEMSA has become the bedroom of corruption. And therefore, if the stories of looting continues to persist, then ignoring the COVID-19 protocols will continue to persist.
Okay. And of course, we'll see how this plays out, and what measures, if at all any, that the Ministry of Health will put, even as these particular cases seem to take an upward trajectory. This is the lead story in your copy of the People Day. You can get it there and get more details on that. I want us to switch gears, talk about our main conversation what to get to. This is the Uhuruto truce. I want us to take it to the beginning, really. Why do we need this truce? Where did it all go wrong? Some people have said when the handshake happened, at that particular point in time is when all ceased to be well between number one and number two of the party and of the country. Joy, is that where it started? Is that where the rain started to beat this pair?
I think once the handshake happened, you saw immediately there was some discomfort between the president and his deputy. But most of the times, even when you listened to the deputy and the president, they used to put up a brave face of, things are still fine between us. The party is still okay. Don't worry about it. And so for about a year or so after the handshake, there was an uneasy calm, so to speak. But I think things came to a head when there was the launch of the BBI. And there was a public display, so to speak, of the rift. And that was the first time people were like, so this guy is actually, there's actually a real rift. And I think for many people, it was almost unbelievable because we thought maybe it was a game to get Raila to, you know, pipe down and things like that. But then it looks like, yeah, no, seriously, watu ni kama wamekosana. Fast forward to this COVID season, and what we saw has been almost a systematic attack on the unity of the two, for lack of a better word. So you had conversations going around that were not very helpful to the presidency. So you'd listen to Atwoli and you listen to Murathe, see what the party were doing with Akina Tuju and the others, and you realize it was almost like there was a deliberate move to excise these two from each other. Fast forward to the prayer day, and now that is when you saw the calmer members of the clergy saying, okay, there was the prayers and the everything, but the rumors have it that when people are having a quiet word with the two afterwards, before and afterwards, was telling them, look, you are the source of all these problems. Forget about looking outside. Can you look inside and sort this one out? And even now it is rumored that it is the clergy that is trying to midwife this reunion. Do we really need a reunion? In my opinion, all along, I was like, you know what, gentlemen, sit down and talk. And I still have that view. Gentlemen, sit down and talk. But in practicality, is it going to happen? I don't see a truce happening. The reason for that is because, again, over the last few months, we've seen the deputy president have a very major turnaround. Before, he was always careful to be, you know, gentle and say, no, the president and I are fine, the party is fine. But of late, he seems to have cast restraint to the wind, and he actually seems to be very unaffected by whatever is thrown at him. In fact, he's almost telling them, bring out your worst. And you saw this coming to a head when he failed to turn up for the COVID conference. And, you know, something that was, it seemed benign enough, just turn up and sit down, but he decided, you know what, I'm skipping that event. Do what you will. That tells me now, whereas before, you could have seen maybe there was one outstretched arm, you are just looking for one outstretched arm, and the handshake would have been complete. Now both hands are in the pocket. So I think we have to come to a place where if we are going to see a reconciliation, it's going to be it will be something very radical. The other reason that makes me think that this might not happen is because of what we've also had the lieutenants saying. Last week, the lieutenants from ODM and the Keleweke side of Jubilee were categorical and said, you know what, there's no room for Ruto in this handshake. So when they talk like that, you can expect on this other side, Oscar Sudi will have a rejoinder. If he didn't have a court case, I'm sure he would have had a swift rejoinder that say, we don't want to shake your hands anyway. So is that truth coming? I don't think so. But is it necessary? Again, I'm not too sure. Because we've gotten this far without it. Okay. I don't see what is going to really change if there's a truce now, apart from maybe a toning down of the political temperatures, which is something that we sorely need. Okay. We badly need that.
We have 3 minutes before we get to our first break. Arnold, let me come to you very quickly on this, because even as we speak about where we are, we have a president who's trying to, you know, have his legacy put in place. We are seeing the legislation being put there, still trying to rescue what's left of his big four. The referendum laws being put in place ostensibly for the BBI. Wouldn't it be wise to have your number two, who's a very hardworking Kenyan, a very hardworking person, there to shepherd these processes through? Because clearly we can see they might not be home and dry even with these laws if the House is divided through the middle as is.
There is a question that we probably need to ask. Why would a president be looking for legacy 2 years to his exit? When he had 5 years to start with, we are now talking about 3 more, and we are still talking about a legacy like he just woke up today and realized, okay, I need to do something. He already has got a legacy, whether he likes it or not. So issues about legacy and such, for me, I think those are red herrings. But having said that, the horse has already bolted. Realistically, if we are going to talk about unity and a truce, the horse has already bolted. Because, like they say, you cannot shake hands with a clenched fist. One man really tried he tried poetry, he tried bringing flowers to another one who actually had a very clenched fist throughout. We called the other man being naive. He probably was in denial, and we kept on talking about it. He then has gotten to a place where he realizes, like Chinua Achebe in Things Fall Apart speaks about a dog that told the other one that if I fall for you this time and you also fall for me, next time, then I will know that it is game and not war. So if we thought that if one of these guys thought that it was actually a game, like she actually said, and we forget that a lot of coups the world over actually happen on the day when they are doing exercises, so that it looks like it's an exercise, and that is the day. So things that look like a joke, normally, that is the day when serious things happen. So whereas initially it looked like it was a joke, these guys were so serious about it. So I still do not think that a meaningful truce at this particular point is really feasible. But I know administratively we will have a truce by force. Because when you had the president over the weekend speak about external forces, or rather the international fraternity, not being very comfortable, it means that there are probably a few things he will not be able to push through as the head of state. Because normally, people out there also know that, Jeff, if I know that you are leaving K24 tomorrow, I'm not going to commit my business with K24 with you. I would want to know continuity and such. So there are a few things that I know are actually not working according to what the president would want to see. Since now he's running after a legacy, he's late in the day. So I know that would actually force for a truce, but that is going to be a forced truce. There are many times when people are in a forced marriage. Initially it was a marriage of convenience. In the last 2 years, they're actually going to come back to work together, not necessarily because they really feel like, but then they are forced to work together. Number one, to ensure that probably some projects are done effectively. And I know the deputy now really knows that his position has got power. That apart from the act of God, he is in a position where if you really do not have to bring him on board, it's going to become very difficult. And he's telling you that even if you brought Oburu Odinga to become the chair of IEBC, he will still pull through. He's telling them, he's now daring them, bring everything on board. But do we blame him when for the last 1 year, he has acted like this thing, there is no real fight, and the rest of us were saying there is a fight, and he was saying there isn't. Now he actually is telling us there is, and now we are feeling bad about it.
Let's take a break at that particular point in time, of course, even as we look at this particular issue. We'd love your views on it as well, because we are where we are, but how do we move forward and get some sort of truth from it? Actually makes the basis of our question of the day. Is a handshake between Uhuru, Raila and Ruto the ultimate truce? Once again, is a handshake between Uhuru, Raila and Ruto the ultimate truce moving forward? We've heard of various attempts to try and bring these two to the table to try and sort whatever's going on. Do you think that is the ultimate solution? Send us your feedback on the WhatsApp number at the bottom of the screen. You can also get me at I am Jeff Mote or at K24 TV. We're back after the break.